Well, what we need from the government is simple. We want a situation where the government will come out clearly and say, okay, well, you know, we've been in office for almost about 6 months. You know, Nigerians will give us maybe 5 more months, 3 more months. You know, nerves, we know nerves are afraid, blah, 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 you know, but we assure Nigerians that these monies are going to be paid, and maybe the arrears, the 6-month arrears we are owing will also be paid when we are making these payments. Government, what Nigerians, I believe, if you follow the social media platform and you see all the agitation, what Nigerians just want is sincerity, because you see, Garba Shehu denied it initially.
Denied what?
Denied some of the campaign promises initially.
No, he said that the ones that were not in the manifesto. He was talking about a certain 100-day covenant that didn't emanate from the secretariat, that you could have several people in different quarters who write us to support the government, but from the party secretariat, of which he was in charge of communication at the time.
Well, you see, we want to know...
That's what he told us.
We want to know which of the campaign promises they intend to keep. We also want to know the time frame, because you see some of these campaign promises were vague, like the earlier, you know, speaker said. You know, I would like just to point...
Which one is vague?
For instance, you know, if you tell me you're going to start paying 5,000 naira, you know, monthly social security, you didn't specify the time. You understand? So because when they were making these promises, you know, because it appears that they were very desperate for votes.
We just read what the vice president said.
But there was no timeline. There was no specific timeline. We need to know in clear terms. We'll start paying in December. We'll start paying in February, so that Nigerians can be rest assured that from February or March, they can start going to the banks and they will get their alert.
But you know, a lot of people, including your party men who have been on this program, have said, look, no doubt the president and the vice president, two of the finest people we've got in this country in terms of integrity and such, one wonders, do you think that he will say this if he didn't mean it?
For me, you know, the president had been contesting for almost about 12 years. You know, when a man, you know, has been trying for such a long time, there's this element of desperation. You understand? You can just say anything to get votes. You understand? But maybe now that he has gotten into office, he's overwhelmed. Because if you look at it, it took him 6 months to put these jokers he called ministers together.
With due respect, please, I think you should take that back.
Okay, well, I take that back. I take that back completely, Markwe. Now, if it took 6 months to get the ministers together, now, how long will it take to pay the 5,000 naira? How long will it take to generate 20,000 megawatts? How long? For instance, when President Goodluck Jonathan, you know, around 2010, that was around about March 2010, President Jonathan increased allowance of youth corpers from 9,775 naira to 19,800. Just in one fell swoop, in a day. The decision was taken. Corpers, the Batch B corpers who had passed out, the 2010 Batch B corpers who had passed out, were paid in arrears. These things don't take time. The same President Goodluck Jonathan, in July 2011, on July 1st, 2010, increased minimum wage from 7,500 to 18,000 naira.
I remember states kicked against it at the time.
Listen, when President Goodluck Jonathan increased the minimum wage, you could hear what states were saying. The federal government never faltered. In fact, for the first time in the history of this country, President Goodluck Jonathan ensured that members of the armed forces, the police, the DSSs, and all paramilitary were involved in the new minimum wage. So what are we talking about?
You know, it's very... I don't know how to put it now, but when you quote some of these things, we also have to quote them in context. Because I remember that, you know, during the lifetime of that administration too, the coordinating minister of the economy complained of how big and bloated our recurrent expenditure was, and that, you know, certain decisions, perhaps to benefit of hindsight, would have been, you know, perhaps tapered or, you know, done with caution. She was making reference to the wages and an increase across board of wages. And you also recall that even during that administration too, there was a time when we battled with the removal of fuel subsidy, but, you know, shortly before the administration left, we also saw a reduction in the pump price of petrol, you know. So certain times they demand certain issues. Well, the question now will be, looking at the context, you are not convinced that Nigeria cannot afford to pay this 5,000 naira as it stands. Do you really think, and something tells me that, you know, that's also because you're also not quite convinced that the APC didn't get this mandate by fraud. Do you really believe, or do you honestly believe that it is feasible?
For me, it is feasible. You see, I have looked at the campaign promises of the APC. I have looked at majority of them. You see, you know, when the president took over on May 29th, he had the entire country behind him. Expectations were high. If the president that day in Eagle Square had announced removal of subsidy, Nigerians, including me, would support him. Do you understand? That was because, you see, in leadership, time is very important. Timing. You see, now Nigerians are more impatient. The same Nigerians who voted for Buhari and campaigned for change, majority of them are now becoming skeptical and saying, this wasn't the man I thought I voted for.
Majority, how did you arrive at that?
Well, that is my own research. For instance, in Kogi, I've interviewed people in Kogi recently because elections are coming up, and I'm asking, if elections are to hold today in Kogi, will you still vote Buhari? And people have reservations.
We know how political polls go. So.
Okay, now...
This is in the same Kogi that just this morning, the workers boycotted work because they have not been paid their salaries. Not because the government hasn't received the bailout funds, but because it's also treading cautiously.
No. For Kogi, I can tell you more for certain that the federal government has refused to pay Kogi bailout funds, and it is political. I can tell you for certain, Maokwe. And again, on this issue of Kogi, the state governments are not owing civil servant salaries. What the state governments are owing for Kogi is the local governments. When minimum wage was introduced by Jonathan, Kogi was among the first states to say they could not afford to pay minimum wage because of the allocations they were receiving. And Kogi sat with the trade unions, the workers, and they agreed that they will be paying 60%, which is what they normally pay, 60% to the local government, while the outstanding 40% will be jettisoned. And all parties agreed. All parties.
What you're saying is that what the governor was saying, which we played this morning, is that he applied for the bailout funds.
Yes.
And he has not been given.
He has not been given bailout funds.
But
you will also agree with me, Mark.
Just a moment. I think I want you to add this. It's been approved. The bailout funds have been approved by this, because he did say that.
Where's the money?
He did say that the monies have been approved. And he also mentioned trying to certify that, you know, the people who are being owed. He said he will set up a committee to ensure the disbursement. That's what he said this morning. I mean, at least
how do you set up, Mark, how do you set up a committee when you don't have even the money to share? Is that not wishful thinking? Is that not building castles in the air? How will the governor set up committees when 95% of the states have been paid bailout funds? All APC states have received bailout funds. Prove me wrong. But Kogi and Bayelsa have not received bailout funds. You and I, Mark, we know why this is happening.
All right, if that's the case, then the government has got to respond to that. If that's true, why is it so? But let me switch back to this payment, 5,000 naira matter, because one wonders. I mean, we know parties here want to win elections. I mean, your party just lost. They'd like to get back to the center. Why will the PDP be helping APC fulfill their promise and then reducing your party's chances?
Well, you know, for me, you know, the PDP, you understand, no doubt wants the right thing to be done. You see, when it was...
Is the right thing you losing elections?
No, listen. When we were in power, they used to say PDP share the money, right? That's what they used to say.
I wasn't a member,
But the problem was this, you know, the truth was this. We usually share the money justly. Every state got what they deserve. Even the NYC people, that their allowances were increased, also got their share. Things were done properly. If PDP had told you that they were going to pay 5,000 naira monthly, this social security stipend, you can be rest assured that PDP will have paid. The only thing that APC might have been alleging us of is that maybe we paid it to party members in our respective states. But they cannot, because PDP does not lie. That's the truth. PDP does not have reputation for lies. PDP does not have reputation for mischief. If the PDP...
Really?
Yes. The PDP was always known for share the money. Now, believe me, in a few months' time, Nigerians will start asking APC, where's the money?
In other words, PDP helping the party, APC, to achieve their campaign promises. Things are changing.
It's not issue of things are changing. You promised Nigerians change. whether we're in PDP, whether we're in APC, whether we're in ABGA, all what we want is the change that we promised Nigerians.
And the PDP is buying into the change.
See, even PDP itself is changing. PDP is rebranding. Do you understand? Whether we like it or not, I am convinced that President Buhari means well for the country. I'm convinced. Personally, I'm convinced. But meaning well for the country, having good intentions, like I said earlier, does not translate into capacity. To me, in this almost about 6 months, President Buhari has not demonstrated enough capacity for me to convince me that he has what it takes to fulfill most of those campaign promises. But the campaign promises are very simple. It's easy to pay the 5,000 naira. It is easy to provide free meals for students in schools. It is easy to do free education. It is easy to generate 20,000 megawatts. These things are easy.
All right, Mr. Deji Adeyanju is a member of the PDP. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you very much.
And we'll be back in a moment to have another matter on the burner today, so don't go away yet.